taking the opportunity to speak with me today. I really appreciate your time. I know that we're starting an hour behind schedule. It's actually an hour and 10 minutes. So I do apologize for that. With that being said, I'm very happy that you took the time to speak with me today. And I love to invite the people who follow me to just learn more about you and just follow and support what it is that you're doing. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I must say it's great to be here with you today. And
Thank
yeah,
So tell us a bit more about yourself, who you are, and what it is you do.
okay. Well, first of all, for your viewers who might be listening to or seeing me for the first time, my name is Gary Thompson. I'm a business development consultant by profession. I'm a humanitarian by nature, and I'm the self-published author for several books, including 10X Branding and Marketing Blueprint, The Psychology of Money, and Impact Marketing and Branding. I also represent two brands. One is Global Capital Inc., and the other is 10X Branding and Marketing LLC out of New York.
Okay. Actually noticed that that's the account we're talking on today. That's the account I found and tagged you. So thank you
Okay.
for joining, and shout out to 10X and to all of the other initiatives that you're doing. So you have a book also. Would you like to tell us a bit more? I know you sent a copy of it to me, and just tell us a little bit for the people who don't know what it is that you do.
Oh, certainly. Now, the title of that book is 10X Branding and Marketing Blueprint. And that book has been written after many years of researching the local and international markets. And one of the things that we see is that 20% of business startups fail within the first year, 50% fail by year 5, and only 33% survive after the 10-year cycle.
Mm.
So we did the research into why those businesses are failing. And along with that, we studied the top 100 companies to really understand how they're able to generate, between 6.5 billion to 220 billion USD annually. So coming out of that research, we decided to write this book, the 10X Branding and Marketing Blueprint. Now, what this book does, it gives entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneur, a blueprint, a step-by-step approach that is necessary for them to consider when you're getting into business. Let's take, for example, one of the things that we see is that very often you start a business and that business should have a value proposition. Now, in most cases, you ask the average entrepreneur, what is your value proposition? And we find that most of them struggle with this. What this book does, it does a deep dive into what the value proposition is. And beyond looking at what the value proposition is, because let me say what, in most cases, again, if even you're able to identify the value proposition, which in most cases people say is a promise to the consumers, this is the beginning and the end with most young entrepreneur value proposition. On our platform, we really help you to understand that in building your value proposition, it must have 4 important touch points. How you impact the public, which is the consumers, is only one of the impact areas. You should have 4 of them, and you should be clear on how you're going to impact them. Let me give you another example. So you want to impact your customers because there's where the cash flow is going to come from, but you want to impact the workforce. Why? Because they are the one who's going to be working in the back end to ensure that you are delivering quality consistently on time. And when you have absenteeism, when you have a demotivated workforce, when you have staff turnover, it affects your ability to deliver the value proposition. So you want to impact the workforce, which is the second area of impact. But the book goes beyond this because once you would have built out what we call the impact strategies, you want to move through the entire chain, value chain of activities that is necessary for the business to grow and to strive. And here's where we talk now about visibility. You spend the time to build a strong brand, but you're not visible. If you're not visible, you're not going to reach. And visibility is not reach because many people use a platform to become visible, but you're not visible with your ideal customers. Now, to become visible with the ideal customer is going to take you to another aspect of things where you have to do market research. And market research really helps you to identify who is your target market. It really helps you to understand what are their needs, wants, and expectations. It helps you to understand the size of your market. And it's only by understanding the size of your market you can then make an informed and educated decision whether or not it is a viable market. This is another thing that you find. Many person gets into business without asking about the viability in getting into the specific area of business. And this is something that you want to know from the get-go, all right? And you can only know this if you're doing that market research. So in doing the market research, you're not able to understand the market size, who are your ideal customers, but you're able to identify what are their lifestyle and culture and social class. Now, let's take, for example, again, you produce an ad to reach a specific target market, but you don't know what they are looking at because you haven't taken the time to understand lifestyle, culture, social class. When you understand this about the target market, you're able to make more strategic and targeted marketing. And with that approach, you're able to optimize the results that you want. So that covers to some extent visibility and reach. Now, reaching the target market doesn't mean that you're going to make impact, and impact is another stage. And in terms of looking at impact, the only way you're going to make impact again is when you take that time to understand your target market, all right, to know what are their needs and their wants. And in building out the value proposition, you're building the value proposition, which is to add value and fix problems based on the market intelligence, based on the information. So when you are going after impact, you can best achieve this by taking the time to understand your target market. Now, once you're able to make impact, here is where you're going to go beyond just the first-time users. Here's where you're going to go into perhaps creating an environment where you're going to make impact and get to the point of lifetime conversion. And lifetime conversion doesn't happen automatically. In doing a business, you must be asking yourself, once I get the one-time user, what is it that I can do to ensure that I'm attracting the customer consistently? All right, this is something that you really want to do. Again, the bigger businesses, the top 100 companies, this is something that they specialize in. They take the time to go to the market to get the intelligence, and then they build out this value proposition that really grabs people's attention. One example of this is that, take for example, Facebook. We can see that millions of people across the world, they almost have what you call an addiction to just going through Facebook. That is not by accident. That is by design. When you take the time to understand your target market, you're able now to build out products and services that truly pulls them in. All right. So the book in itself really walk you through this step-by-step approach that helps you to understand how to get the visibility, how to get the reach, how to make the impact, how to get the conversion. And when you get the conversion, you don't stop here. Again, you find that once you start a business and you start to get some conversion, you're happy about this. We go one step further. We go a few steps further because from conversion, we talk about how do you build confidence, all right? Because confidence, if you can convert, but then, you can be shaky in terms of public confidence, but how do you build your brand out in a way where you have confidence, where the public have trust in your brand, and you get to that point where you can talk now about credibility. Now, you just don't get here by accident. You have to get here by intent.
Right.
Again, what we see is that many business start up, many young entrepreneurs, they are not seeing through the entire process. So this again is only one element of what is necessary to drive businesses to be more successful. This is only one element of what we call the business success ecosystem. The big businesses, the top 100 companies, they have a blueprint. They have their business success ecosystem. What my company is doing is really helping businesses to understand the ecosystem of doing business and to become successful. What I've just gone through just now represents branding and marketing.
Right.
And branding and marketing is only one element of the ecosystem. We can look at another ecosystem, which we're going to call capital markets. And capital markets is so necessary because when you talk with millions of small, medium-sized entrepreneur across the world, they have a common challenge, and that common challenge is access to capital. All right, and in most cases, they are going to the commercial banks for capital to move their businesses forward. But to access capital is not automatic. It's not automatic. There's pre-qualification criteria. Depending on which country you're in, you can predetermine what is the pre-qualification criteria. But let's take, for example, you go into the DCM, debt capital market. The financial institution, the bankers, will be asking you for collateral. There is almost no commercial financing institution that is going to allocate funding to you without collateral unless the monies that you're taking is going to be invested back into some fixed asset, and they can leverage that asset to collateralize the debt. But again, in most cases, go ahead.
Yesterday, working on a budget sheet for my business and a profit margin form or sheet. And then in doing that, it also asked about investors, if you have investors, and how much you pay on rent. And so you get to see what your product profit margin is. And then you still have to pay people out of that for the time. And so I was definitely looking at that because that's one of the forms that you need when you're going into the bank. If you're looking at any kind of outsource or any kind of investments or capital from them. So when I started looking at that, and then it's a course that I'm doing actually, and then they were talking about discounting your products and what that does, right? And it's like I'm learning a lot. So I'm really happy to have this conversation with you right now because it's like a continuation of the class I had yesterday.
Well, let me talk a little bit about that because, what a bank will ask you for is, in some cases, is your business plan and the financial projection. Now, what you find happen very often, the entrepreneur, and we know this because we work with, over the many years, is thousands of, business owners. And one of the things that we see is that they do the business plan, they get some assistance to do the financial projection, but this is what we see. There's a right and wrong way in which you prepare the business plan and the financial projection. From a private equity perspective, this is what I want to say. You find that there are persons in business in developing the financial projection and the business plan. They stay in their comfort zone and they simply produce these documents. And that is not the healthiest thing to do, because in preparing your business plan, in preparing your financial projection, it should be data driven. All right, it should be data driven. Any investor coming in to put monies into your business, they want data driven information, not speculation.
Mm-hmm.
And you find in most cases, the entrepreneur, they're going to sit in their comfort zone and they're going to write a business plan. If they, those that can write their business plan, and they're going to be those who are going to do a financial projection, those that can do it. But it's going to be based on speculation. It's going to be based on assumption. One of the things that we advise is that you should take the guesswork out of business. You should take the assumption and speculation out of business. And this is why I spoke early on about market research, because a critical part of the market research when you're doing the business plan, you want to know the market size. You want to know the market geography. You want to know the market spending power. And it is based on these kinds of information, you can then deduct what is possible in terms of the business potential to cash flow. You want to know your competitors. You want to know the gaps in the market. And you want to know.
And why, what makes your product the one that people should try, as opposed to the one at Walmart or, you know, the other store that's $3 or $4 cheaper, sometimes $20 cheaper. But yes, sorry, I love going with this, Gary. Please continue.
Yeah. So as you take the time to do this kind of market intelligence gathering, you know, it really helps you to be more informed as you set about developing the business plan, as you set about developing the financial projection. You want to know your competitors, and something that you want to do even before you do the business plan is do the SWOT analysis. And the SWOT analysis is something that we call take the time to understand what are the market strengths, what are weaknesses, what are opportunities, or what are threats. Any investor coming to invest with you, the smart ones, they will ask you for these kind of information. They will grill you to ensure that you understand your market. And we call this being market oriented and being market sensitive. Now, if you're in business and you are not oriented with the market, you are not sensitive about the market, it means that you're very speculative. You are not informed. So in doing research, I talk about three types of research. There's one that I call primary market research, and that's really where you get the skin in the game. And you can beat this, but to do primary market research is capital intensive, because you have to have a team and you have to go door to door. You really have to get, you know, the skin in the game. You got to get the mud in the boots. But the reality of doing this, all right, the benefits of doing this is that you can almost instantly leverage this data into making critical business decisions. The next type of market research that you're going to find is what they call the secondary market research. And secondary market research is where you're going to go to published data, where research was done a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, 5, 10 years ago, and you extract that data. But the challenge with that secondary data is that secondary data is not always accurate. It's not always up to date, and it could be very misleading. All right. I mean, at one time you might want to say, hey, you know, the city of Alabama, it has 1 million persons or 10 million persons, but that was 10 years ago. All right. Economic reality, social reality might have cut the market size by half. So you only have 5,000 persons. So the market reality can change if you're just dependent on secondary market data. The worst part of all of this is that People may not even be dependent on secondary data. They're going to what I call speculative data. That means you just speculate that, hey, this is an opportunity to make money because I'm in business, and you speculate your way to failure. All right.
With
For us, go ahead.
without without any proof. And what I was going to say about the older market research you were referring to as 3 to 4 years old, there may have been other grassroots companies looking at that data, thinking, oh, well, let's just get into this market. So by the time we're getting into the market now thinking it's new, there are already new competitors. So the data would have changed because the demand and the supply would then have changed also. So definitely, definitely.
You're perfectly correct. You see, in the developed world, bigger companies or companies that understands the negative ramification of leveraging speculative data, particularly when it comes to product innovation, product that has to do with human consumption, they're not going to take that risk. All right, because if you study the successful companies that are producing, let us say, pharmaceutical products or, health-giving products,
Mhm.
they do not spend a day, first of all, they don't speculate. Two, they're not dependent on secondary data. Three, they're going to go straight to the primary market research. Why? Because they're fully aware that if you put a pharmaceutical product out there or a health-giving product and it cause negative human effects, they can sue for for everything that they got.
Right.
So they're going to be market driven. But the thing about it, we should not wait until the system forces to do what is right in business. You should naturally want to do what is right in the interest of adding value and fixing problems to the customers. So when you see businesses are starting, but businesses are struggling, they are struggling because of a range of factors, and one of them is market intelligence. All right, it's market intelligence and how you're able to up level that in that market intelligence and market data into helping you to make informed and critical market information. We were talking here about the business plan and the financial projection. The
Mm-hmm.
same principle applies. I mean, in building out the business plan and building out the financial projections, you don't want speculative data. The financial institution, one of the reasons they're going to turn you down, and they may never tell you why. One is because they know you're using speculative data. They're smart enough to know this. And two, they know that you're using outdated secondary data. And
Mm-hmm.
outdated secondary data means that you can lose hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in the process. And I do believe that one of the last thing commercial banks wants to do is to foreclose on you. All right. Perhaps one of the last things they want to do is to foreclose. While they're going to have your asset, your debt is going to be collateralized and amortized, I don't think that they want to foreclose on you. So in order to avoid a worst case, instead of creating the scenario for foreclosure, they're going to deny you getting access because you are ill prepared in
Mm-hmm.
terms of reaching the pre-qualification and criteria. When you take the time as an entrepreneur to do business in the right way, get the intelligence and allow that intelligence to drive your documentation, to drive how you're interfacing with the market, you stand a much better chance to win. And that's only dealing with the debt capital. But the point I want to hit home, many businesses suffer and want to become frustrated because they're not accessing capital. There's a reason why you're not accessing capital. And one of the things that you should do is get a CPA, certified public accountant, get a PFA, professional financial advisor, get a business consultant that can help you navigate this entire process, because you have debt capital, but you also have equity capital. And debt is different from equity.
Mm-hmm.
There are high pre-qualification with for debt capital. But with equity capital, they are going to have, depending if you're going to angel investors, venture capitalists, and private equity investors, the pre-qualifications can change. You may have venture capitalists and angel investors that may invest with you pre-income, meaning that they are not looking at historical financial data. They are looking at the potential of the business to cash flow. All right.
Yeah.
So you may stand a better chance with the angel investors and the venture capitalists. But still, they're going to looking for data. I just mentioned, they're going to look at the potential of the business to cash flow. And the potential, again, can be based on speculation. The
Yes.
potential of the business to cash flow can be data based on outdated secondary data.
Yeah.
It's got to be based on primary data.
Since we're on this topic, and I was checking my message in the middle, so a few people were saying to save this live and that sort of stuff, but they could have stayed the whole time. But what I think is, a lot of the times, people, when we're looking at research, is that we don't realize we could do our own research within the community or within the environment that we're in. Try to figure out if there are any services as these services that provide the same type of service, or whatever it is that we're providing. And not just that, to find community leaders who believe in the product. And sometimes we can get support letters. These support letters go a long way. Also, if there are business who would want to see, who think, for instance, if I'm doing a uniform, like work uniform, maybe I can get the hospitals, the sports agencies, schools, different workplaces to provide letters of support to say that should this business be in the area, they would be some of my potential clients. So these things actually do help. So I just wanted to interject, because we're throwing these things out there and people will be coming back to it. I wanted to put some of these just extra layers of support that people were thinking, well, they didn't tell us how to do it. Well, we can't tell you how to do everything, but we can suggest some things. Also, using your local politicians, not just business owners. Just create a network, or consumers, people who think, hey, you know what? I've been having to import this product or this service or this medicine from another country, and it costs me an extra. And you try to get, I don't know, canvass the doctor's offices and see, do they have clients who use this type of products, if it's a medical product. And so that's how we're going to do it, people. So sorry, Mr. Thompson, please continue with your great expertise that I know will beneficial a whole lot of us, including myself.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, as I did said, primary market research is capital intensive. But if you are a social person who have networks, perhaps network is something that you can leverage and perhaps significantly bring down the cost. Now, you find that, yes, you can use random sampling, you can use quota sampling in your market research. But sometimes what you find difficult, the market research process is not just developing the questionnaire. It's not just even developing the questionnaire. You have to be knowledgeable about what you're doing to be able to do that questionnaire. And once you would have done that in the right way, it has to be circulated. And whether you're going to go for a small sample or you're going to go for a small sample at different geography, so you have a more accurate data. But once you collect that data, they call data analytics. You have to analyze the data. So you have to know what information you want. Perhaps you might want, the particular age and particular needs, income, level, savings. There are critical information that you would need to have. And So to prepare or to do that survey, you at least need some support from some subject matter expert that can at least help you with the tail end of designing the questionnaire. But you're right in terms that once you are able to get past that part of it, you can definitely connect with community leaders that may be able to give you some support to reach as much persons as possible to collect data. But from there, you have to analyze the data so you can deduct the, the lifestyle, cultural, social needs of the specific demographic and leverage that to make informed decisions. Because the last thing that you want is to do that survey and you miss out on some critical area of, let us say, the candidate may want a product, may want a service, but then you didn't do an analysis on their disposable income. All right, because we are seeing that the majority of persons who have needs and wants and expectations, they don't have the disposable income in most cases to invest in what you're offering. They may be willing candidate, but in terms of disposable income, they're weak. But
So
you
is
made
there
a good point.
needs
Huh?
assessment that you're doing on your product or your service to see what is the need for it? And in doing that risk needs assessment, sometimes we find that we may have to change the product or we may have to change the idea of what it is we're providing. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I think some people, they come in with a certain idea and along the way it gets changed based on, it's like what I have and what the customers need, right? So we're going to have to meet each other in the middle. And I think some people are just so hell bent on, it's like, no, this is the product that I'm bringing, and this is what I want to do. And we have to be adaptable. We have to be flexible because these times. And for the average product or service that we come out with, there's so many other competitors or just another new thing coming out within, if I found that maybe I have a garlic pill that's good for high blood pressure, there might be someone with a soursop leaf tea, or you know what I mean? There are just so many different things that the market gets shifted and altered so fast. And I think we have to be prepared to just add or take away sometimes and take advice from others when we're doing this type of market research.
Yeah. I do believe yes and no, because if you're doing a strong brand that
Mhm.
promises to, deliver this particular end results, the last thing that you want to take away from it because you're dealing with a customer that cannot pay,
Mhm.
all right, or pay all the monies. The smart things about all of this is that doing the research, you know who can pay and want the product and who want the product but cannot pay. And the last thing that you want to do is to drop the quality of what you're offering. But there might be smart things that you can do. Now, let's take, for example, if you talk to the average person and say, do you want to be rich? What answer do you think you're going to get?
Everyone wants to be rich.
Good. But guess what? Let us suppose you're charging 5,000 per person. Can everybody charge you 5,000 per person? Can
No,
everybody pay 5,000 to you per person to be trained?
I don't
No,
think one will be
no.
able to pay it.
But guess what? Guess what? The market research will help you to understand who can pay and who cannot pay. And perhaps one of the things that you can do to accommodate some that cannot pay is to go to your politicians, to go to your community leaders and see if they can sponsor 50, 100, 200, 500 persons to go through your program. All
And
right. So
I was going to say is one or a few smart people would try to figure out what it is they have and what it is I need and try to bridge that gap by bartering the service so they can give me something while gaining that $5,000 course. So I was
you
thinking in terms of,
you're correct. You're
yeah,
correct. Those are things that can be done. So there are limitless possibilities, and I love that you bring in bartering and negotiation, and all of this is possible. All right. What I want to add here is that to be successful in business, to be successful in life, you have to be good at relationship building. You have to invest in building relationship. All right. So one thing that I want to emphasize, go back to the topic that we were discussing, which is different types of financial instruments. With equity capital, one of the beauty about equity, and perhaps this is something for businesses to think about, you do not have, with debt, you have monthly collateralized debt obligation, meaning every month you have to pay back monies to the commercial banks. With equity, it's different. With equity, you're paying dividend yields, which means that you may not have to pay out dividend perhaps until the end of the year, or depending on how it is structured, some VCPE may carry a little longer, all right, before you start to pay back. That means that you have more monies in the company to reinvest back into the company. And these are important things for entrepreneurs to really understand when it comes to the financial instruments. Now, along with this, what we also see is that many businesses, they focus on access to the capital.
Mm-hmm.
But access to capital for us is perhaps, one of the last things you want to start thinking about. The first thing that we think about is how you're going to cash flow that debt. Because guess what? One of the things that we see is that many, rising star in business, you take a debt, and because, again, you don't understand all of the enablers and accommodators, you take that debt, and that debt is mismanaged. And guess what? You might have borrowed mommy, daddy, uncle, aunt. They would have used their collaterals to collateralize your debt. And then the bank take their home and their asset, and all you can say is sorry. So for us, one of the things that we emphasize, if you're taking a debt, first of all, you want to know how to cash flow that debt. So it's about understanding debt portfolios. It's about understanding debt access, how to access it.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding debt leverage. You must understand smart debt leverage. And the icing on the cake is to understand debt mitigation. Mitigation means that regardless of how high the interest rate is, you can bring down the debt cost legally. All the financial institution knows this, but do they have an obligation to tell you? Perhaps not. But if you know exactly how to leverage debt in the mitigation process. Now, in this process, you could save hundreds of thousands, depending on how much you're borrowing, or perhaps millions on the debt portfolios. There's a lot that people don't, know about borrowing a debt. All you know that you need money to put into your business. Sometimes it becomes mismanaged. But in taking a debt, there's something that we call your principal balance. There's something that you call interest rate, if it's debt. There's something that you call the debt life cycle, which you should be aware of, because it is the debt life cycle that ultimately influences how much you're going to be paying for that debt. And that's something that you can manage if you know what you're doing. But let's go right back to the equity. You may find an equity partner, meaning that you have an investor. But when a venture capitalist, a private equity investor come on board with you, they're not necessarily coming on board with you for the rest of your life. They're coming on board for a finite period. And what a finite period means, they're going to be with you for 6 to about 12 years. And at the end of that period, they're going to exit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the initial stage, in most cases, all you're seeing is that I need access to capital. So you sign the dotted line without reading the fine print. And the fine print says that this is your company. The VC is going to have a seat on your board, but their exit strategy is to take you to IPO. Now, what is an IPO? An IPO means that I take you to an initial public offer, which means that you move from a limited liability company and you now become a public company, meaning that because you're going public, you may lose control over privacy and control over ownership of the company.
So this
So,
is when you go public is when you get to go on the stock market.
yeah. Now, this could be a good thing, but it could be a bad thing if you're not prepared for it. Because going to the stock market, it means that every single thing that you do, every muscle that you move in that business is public knowledge because you're a public company.
Hmm.
And perhaps you may not be ready to be public. But if you're ill prepared going in for equity capital, you're exposed to this. So you need a subject matter expert to really help you to understand this entire process and how to navigate it. And there are smart ways in which you could navigate the process. But again, the average business owner and entrepreneur, they're not familiar with all of these different techniques. For us, what we say, if you're in business, you need to understand debt instrument, because in debt is not just a business loan. You have things like overdraft, all right? You have things like BLOCs and HELOCs. You have different instruments. They have line of credit, all within the DCM field.
Mm-hmm.
And the pre-qualification for them may be different. So to get an overdraft, you may not have, all the pre-qualification has a loan. And there's different calculation. There is what you call compounded interest, and
Right.
there is simple interest. So it's a whole lot that the entrepreneur needs to know about. And when you understand this, you now understand how to buy debt, how
And
to mitigate debt.
interest, which then affects your every day, your amounts will change based on the daily interest, what's paid, what's owed, that kind of stuff. Because I was looking at one of the sheets on top of uh, investors or having the investors portion to pay back. There's also the product. There's also the cost of labor. Then there's your rent cost if it's a tangible product, and where you're going to store the product. Then the shipping process and shipping cost. And so I'm learning that these costs could actually add up to, very fast. And not just can they add up very fast, but they they can turn out to make your profit margin to be very small or very low. So that's where discounting and that kind of stuff, it doesn't benefit the company, because then if you're already operating from a low profit margin, and then the bank will look at that as a big risk. What do they have to invest in?
Well, there's a lot to be considered. There's a whole lot, and I can say this, that we are simply scratching the surface here in terms of how well businesses needs to be prepared. And I do believe that with all fairness, we need to recognize that as professionals, it takes you, between 4 to 10 and 12 years to get yourself fully qualified. And then it takes you a few more years to refine that knowledge process. And the average person's coming into business today, they are not coming with all of that wealth of experience and all of that wealth of knowledge. So you're going to find that some of them are going to fault in the process, but we have to get them started somewhere. All right. A lot of what you said, it's going to be things for them to consider.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps that's part of the ecosystem that they need to discuss. So far, we have discussed two things. Two elements of the ecosystem. One is the branding and the marketing, and one is the capital market ecosystem. What I want to get home here, adding to some of what you would have said, is that businesses do not have to struggle because of lack of capital. Because taking the time to understand financial instruments, one of the other platforms that you could use is credit. I really want to get this home. You can use credit, and the pre-qualification for business credit is much lower. We represent a company out of Florida, which is perhaps the largest credit facilitation company in the United States of America. To date, we have provided business credit to close to 50,000 entrepreneurs, and that's a big number. 50,000 entrepreneurs we have helped to access credit. Why? Because the other thing that we see is that many, entrepreneurs starting their business, guess what credit they're using? They're using their
Their
personal credit.
Yeah, their own personal.
And there's risk attached to using your personal credit. I mean, legally you're exposed, but also the more you utilize personal credit, it affects your FICO score. And once your FICO score is affected, and every time they do a credit pull, you have Equifax, you have Experian, you have TransUnion that are giving you a low rating. So the more utilization you have with your personal credit, it reduces your chances to leverage credit. What I would say, you don't want to leverage, you want to have good personal credit. But on the business side, you want to have the good personal credit to leverage it to get business credit. The pre-qualification here again is low. Personal credit, they are just looking at your SSN, which is your social security number. They're just looking at, you have a fixed place of address. These are some basic things that they look for. All right. Your social security is perhaps one of the main things. You can register online and start to get personal credit. Business credit now, you're not necessarily leveraging your SSN, you're leveraging your EIN. Because once you register LLC, the state will issue you with the EIN. And the EIN now is what you're now able to leverage to start to build up your business credits, your EIN and your ITIN. Now, there's some simple processes here. So we want to give some solution to your audience who might be in business, who are looking for capital, who might be in the United States of America. With getting your EIN, you also want to be registered with DNB, meaning that you want to get your DNB number. There's a DNB number.
Bradley? Duns and
Dun and Bradstreet.
Right.
Dun and Bradstreet. You want to get your DNB number. Because what that does, it means now that you're not registered with the big boys in business. And let me just say this. The biggest companies in the US, they either had used credit or are still using credit. Walmart have perhaps about 500 plus credit lines. That simply means that they're able to take millions of dollars in credit, stock their store without even using their personal cash, flip that money, pay back the debt, and smile to the bank. This is something that the average entrepreneur can do. All right, you just need to ensure that you have your DNB number, you have you're visible with Experian business, not personal, and Equifax business. And there are certain credit lines and so forth that you can now start to take out that's going to bump up your opportunity to get business credit. Perhaps they may start you at 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. You start to expand. But the pre-qualification here is much, much lower than debt and inequity. And if that is too tough for you again, you mentioned something early on, connection, politician, and that kind of stuff. There's also what we call smart capital leverage. Smart capital leverage means that your pre-qualification means that you have good communication skills, you have good leadership skills, you're a people person. And with these three pre-qualification, you can make tremendous monies for yourself and not have to worry about paying back debt, not have to worry about, credit obligation, and not have to worry about going IPO and perhaps getting a LBO, leverage buyout, because now you have smart capital and all the monies that you raise here, you're able now to leverage it back into your dream operation. So it's important to understand money, financial instruments, and how it can really help you and your business start up and you and your business scale up. getting the right advisors on your side is going to really help you to make better business decisions, which can be the difference between you moving slow, moving not at all, and you achieving the dreams that you have for yourself. So the book that we have written, the 10X Branding and Marketing Blueprint, our ultimate vision is to really show businesses how to 10X their business. And some of our experience, we are talking to business owners, you know, and of course, these are small. Some might be just alone, might just have, a VA, the virtual assistants, helping them navigate some things. And when you look at their income projection is below $100,000. But when you assess the business potential to grow, you can 10x that at the click of a finger. So when we come in now is to really help them to understand how to adopt our system into their businesses to move it to a whole nother level. The greatest challenge that we see also happen is that the average person starting a business is me, myself alone. Me, myself, and I. In the United States of America, you have approximately 20 million business owners that are alone in their business, meaning that they are the accountant, they are public relation, they are marketing, they are product innovation, they are distribution, they are everything. That's the recipe to go slow and to go nowhere. We help the entrepreneur to understand what we call the 20/80 rule, and that's a critical part of the ecosystem. In doing a business, if you really want to scale and make the kind of impact, the 20/80 rule helps you to understand the 3 levels of leadership that you call the strategic, tactical, and operational. Every successful organization is run on this principle: strategic, tactical, operational. Your strategic team is you and your board of directors. Your tactical team is all of your management head. Your operational team is everyone who's going to be getting out there, making things happen. Your Salesforce composite method that is going to be going out there, building out the value chain, connecting all the dots on the ground. Now, you find that some business owners function at all 3 levels: strategic, tactical, and operational. You don't need to do that. You need to function at the strategic, where you are best functioning as the global thinker, the social actor, the transformational leader. But then you only want an element of the strategic level of leadership. The rest you delegate it out. And over a period of time, you even delegate your 20%. So you have all of your time back to think about the next big project.
This is how you make money while you sleep. This is the answer.
You got it. So they are right and wrong. And the key here is having the right information, having the right support system behind you that can really help you to make better business decisions. All right. And once you have the right team, you make things happen. There's so much for us to talk about. As I'm saying, we are just scratching the surface here. Although it's a lot of information, we are scratching the surface in terms of the business success ecosystem. But I do believe that your audience has enough now to start to make some better business decisions. I'm happy that we were able to go through financial instruments so they know, hey, I don't have to depend on debt. Hey, I don't have to depend on equity. Hey, credit is super good, but I can smart capital where I don't have any debt. Once I raise this money, it's my money. I do what I want to do. And let me give you another example, just coming back to this. A young lady called me and she said she needs $50,000 because part of what we do, we help businesses to access capital. But long before you access capital, we help you to understand your market. And one of the things that we say, if you're a business startup, right, depending on your type of business and you're going for debt, you're not really ready for that. You should try, if you need debt to move your business forward, you don't have enough skin in the game. If you have enough skin in the game, you can raise the funds for the start of this business. And as you start to build up the track record, you then start when you're going for funding is when you know that you have a demand for your products and services. And once you take that money, is going to drive the, profitability. It's going to drive the business growth, and all these things are going to happen. So what I did with her, I said, this is what I want to do for you, because one of the things she said to me is that she has a few thousand persons in her network. So I said, great. I said, give me 1,000, and let us suppose that we're going to charge 1,000 person $500 for a ticket to a groundbreaking program. So you have 1,000, you charging 500. That's how much? That's $500,000. So I said to her, this is
Right.
what I'm going to do for you. Give me access to your 1,000, and I'm going to give you the 50,000 that you want. You don't have to pay it back. That's a gift to you. Give me access. So if she can do that, it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
All we do is provide value to her target market. She makes the money that she wants. She can go and live her dream life that she wants to live. And she don't have to worry about debt, equity, credit obligation. 50,000 is yours.
Wow.
And that can happen in a short period of time. In a couple of days, it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of this is really ensuring that you have
Bartering and leveraging services, basically.
you got it.
and
You
and
got it.
and also finding the right institution to work with, and knowing that things are going to go into a growth perspective once you line up with these people, because there's a very easy way to line up with the wrong facility, the wrong individual, the wrong program or service, and everything just absolutely tumble down. But
You're right. You're
there's
perfectly correct,
also,
because go
sorry, I
ahead.
was speaking with you, there are the people who would know how confident and how comfortable you are in giving the information, and then to go into, okay, so what were your client base like? Who were your clients? Then you start telling stories about the clients, right? So it's like people who have a successful background, their stories would sound as such. It would be things that would come very automatically, and then the success stories will follow. I find that there are a lot of people who talk from a growth perspective or from a business planning perspective when they themselves are in a position of growing or starting up. And it's cool to be a person who, we hear these things and we want to belch it out. But that's the reason why I do business, but I am not a subject matter expert in the business area. I'm doing a course to understand how to better run my business, and how to stay on top of things. So people like yourself, when I meet you, I'm honored to meet you, and definitely very interested to get more information from you and to see how I can maximize the opportunity of getting that time into collateral now. So it's like, how do I get Mr. Thompson to to go from me just being an interesting person to speak to and giving advice on my business into actually working out a plan of action with me of how do I get from here to there to where my goals are. So I think that's the difference in speaking with you and a lot of people, and in business, in just entrepreneurship. First person that I thought of speaking to, because I've had so much time listening to you. I know we connected about doing some stuff, and at that time I've been just overwhelmed in the things that I do myself. So I didn't have time, but I definitely knew that you're a person that I come back to and just revisit the conversation, revisit the process, and take it from there. So I just wanted to say that.
You're welcome anytime. Anytime. I just want to add that you have said a whole lot in terms of knowing who to come to get the right support. And one of the things that I've found common, is that a lot of young entrepreneurs They have dreams, they have hopes, and many of them are paying consultants or so-called consultants to get the information. And is this a coincidence? I don't think so. Let us suppose that over a 2 weeks period, I interface with, 10 new clients. I had 5 of them that was saying they spent thousands of dollars with consultants for 6 to 9 months and they got nowhere, nowhere. And one of the things that we take pride in is that from the get-go of that consultation with you, we help you to fix the problem from the very first week because we are data-driven. We understand business, with close to over 20 years doing what we do. I mean, there have to be some history. And with that, we're able to pull them back from that trauma that they have been through. Many of the clients we have to, we decide to give them some free exposure to our platform, to give them back some hope and then point them in the right direction so they, can, know how business is done, see how business is done. Let me say something else that we see many businesses do also. Many young entrepreneurs, they have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. That's a recipe for disaster. I'm not saying to you that you're not going to have 4 plans, but I'm saying to you, when you're starting up, why do you want to have all of these different plans and one will cancel the other?
Mm-hmm.
It will cancel the other. Whether you know it or not, it will. So one of the things that we really get our clients to do is to focus on the one project. The thing about it, I keep saying, you don't need 10 projects. You need one project that is a master plan. It becomes a master plan when you have the intelligence that there's a market, there's a sizable market. And once you understand the size of the market, you understand the business potential to cash flow. Now, once you know the business got potential to cash flow, you want to commit your time, talent, and resources, your blood, sweat, and tears, just focusing on that.
Mm-hmm.
Give it enough time to grow and expand, apply the 20/80 rule, and then when you can delegate your 20%, go to the next project. The wealthiest of people do this all the time.
Which
So there's
this,
smart ways.
sorry, this brings me to my next point, and you just hit something for me. So
Okay.
my record label, I just did a nonprofit, which I'm working on simultaneously. I'm also expanding the services in my record label. I'm also looking to set up a new service and also something faith-based. So we're talking 5 businesses here. I learned that the average millionaire has 10 businesses. Am I biting off too much to chew at this point?
Yeah,
Or
you're biting perhaps too soon. Successful people, they have 5 and 10 streams of income, but those income streams are built up over a period of time. I know something that I've seen happen very often, and I wonder why they do this. I see a lot of successful people come to front and they will advocate that, yes, I have multiple streams of income. All right. But it didn't say that I took one chunk at a time. Let me say this is either go slow, and slow is a new fast, or you're wealthy enough that you have a team of persons that you can delegate responsibility to. It's practically impossible for you to manage 5, 10 projects. I don't care how smart you are. And I'm talking from experience. I don't care. It's impossible. Take one chunk at a time, or ensure that you have some of the smartest people on your side that you can delegate a project to, and all they're doing is giving you feedback. You don't have to think tank the process. You don't have to brainstorm the process. You know what you want to accomplish, and you send your team to go after it. And perhaps with money, you can do this. Perhaps you don't have to know anything about real estate, but you have a team of real estate gurus that you say, buy property, um, invest in this property, force the value up, and flip the property. You don't have to think it. You can appoint persons to do it, and you get a commission based on the sale. So
when you almost impossible to do, I've went into, for instance, funding initiatives
Mm-hmm.
or town halls with the mayor or with politicians or whoever. And then it's like, which business am I representing today? And then not just that, right? Then if I tell them about this business, what if there's something that comes up for the other business? Am I then supposed to tell them, well, yes, I have this other business too? And then it puts me in a situation of conflict of interest, because then it's me, myself, conflicting with myself for all of the interests that I have, wanting them all to be successful, but only having the capacity of being one person able to do one thing at one time. So, what you're saying comes from a person who has experience and is not just talking, but someone who's giving sound advice. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, let me say what in starting business, we all make mistakes. Um, with over 30 years of experience in business, yes, you start and you want to do multiple things, but you quickly learn that that's a way to choke yourself. That's a way to reach your maker early. Now, you heard me mention just two businesses,
Mhm.
businesses that has broad scope. But guess what? I spent many years in the advertising industry. All right. Many years studying branding and marketing at Cambridge, and a few years studying finance. But guess what? One of the reasons we merged these two is because you can have access to capital, but you don't understand marketing. You don't understand branding. You don't understand how to move the business forward. So we bring these two together, just two, that has tremendous potential to impact the business and really help them to make better business decisions. All right,
Nice.
so that's just a little bit that I want to say. And I must also say that you get me on a very, very lucky day. We have a masterclass coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will put a link. I'll try my best to put a link once I get access to this Zoom so your viewers can join it. It's a free masterclass. And we are going to be interfacing with persons from across the world. All right, that's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And here is where we're going to be going a little bit more deeper into what we call the business success ecosystem, because today we have only been able to talk about two of them. There are many others that you need to consider, and we will go into those later on today. So I must say that it's fun talking with you, but I don't know if you have any questions just before we close off.
That was actually it. I was gonna ask about the summit today. And so once I'm going to post this video and I'm going to make reference to it. Once you send, I've also posted the flyer for the summit, guys. So the flyer is also on my page from yesterday. So please feel free to connect. Also, feel free to follow Mr. Thompson yourself. It's Gary Thompson. Sorry, let me just get Gary Thompson 10X. And so what we're going to do is we're going to also post this interview on YouTube, on Facebook, and make reference to them on my other platforms. So this information will be widely available. And I spoke with you, Mr. Thompson, about also doing things, in the future, or you coming back at any time to do an interview, any other time that you have something going on and that you wanted us to know about and to join you and be interested in. So we're
Oh,
definitely.
definitely. Definitely. We have a lot to talk about. You're talented, multi-talented. You're into music, you're into business. I really love how you did this interview, and I can see that, you got it going on.
Thank you so much. Oprah Winfrey is one of the women that are like one of the strongest women in the world to me. And I
Yeah.
started sitting back and looking at a lot of the things that she's done. And just, I think I started gardening last year, which is
Yeah.
something she does. I'm writing my first book, which is something she does. And I started doing this interview. And this is not, it's not me trying to do everything she does. It's just happening. So shout out to one of the most valuable mentors in the world for young Black women, Oprah Winfrey, and for what she's done, and the fact that us young women, we get to role model ourselves after someone that great. So thank you so much, Mr. Thompson. Shout out to you, just a successful businessman and entrepreneur. And Melanin Empowerment for reaching out to the same people in your community, people who look like you, because it's not just me reaching out for the interview. You've reached out to me before and spoken to me about building generational wealth and taking my business to the next level. So this is something that you do. This is nothing artificial. So I really, really admire that about you. I'm very much into melanin empowerment, into building generational wealth, into just empowering our people and not looking at what hasn't worked in the past, but just kind of putting out the formulas of things that can work and are able to work, and just different patterns of thinking, different patterns of behavior, and just different patterns that we can establish, not just for ourselves, but for each other and for the next generation. Because other than that, we'll just have a bunch of children that's smoking weed and twerking.
You get it. Smoking weed and twerking.
I mean,
there's a lot of hot topic around that, right?
So I thank you again. I will definitely be there. I'm dressed for the summit, so I will be there. I'm ready. I had my shower. I got ready early today, Mr. Thompson. So I'm ready for the summit. I will be there at 2 p.m. Thank you again for your beautiful energy, for all of the empowerment that you're doing, and just the strength. And again, you seem like a very successful person. I hear the construction on a Saturday in your house, so I can regular people don't do construction work.
Yeah, perhaps at the next program we can talk about, some of the success story in real estate, because real estate is something that I love. But with time, we can go into all of that. I have been able to leverage real estate to retire at age 35. And that's a story for us to talk about later on.
Definitely.
All right. Just for your audience, in the event that they want to learn more about what we do, you can also go to globalcapital.us.com. That's the website. And you can navigate that website to learn some of what we are doing. So thanks again, Fatima. Wow, Sophia, I'm changing your name. And I'm going to send the link to you on WhatsApp shortly. And Sophia, I just want to give you hats off to you. You're an angel. I know that you have a kind heart. I know you're very ambitious. And I'm absolutely certain with this approach that you're using, connecting with people, adding value, it's going to open tremendous opportunity for you to go further. We have a lot of talking to do. And I know that once we talk off of this platform, you're going to be smiling for a long time to come.
Thank you so much, Mr.
See the smile start already, right?
Smile. You're just a really dope person. And just after every conversation with you, I smile anyways. So I can't wait. Love and happy Saturday to you, King. It was definitely an honor to speak with you, to connect with you, and to just receive a lot of the great knowledge and energy and information that you have for me and for our people, and just for anyone who wants to hear. So it's all love. Love is the greatest and the highest frequency on the planet. So we wish you nothing but love and success. May peace and whatever it is you desire find you.
Thanks a lot, and I wish you all the well. Same also. You deserve it.
Thank you so much. Good day.
All right.